If you're currently dealing with agoraphobia to where you are housebound and you have been stuck that way for years and you feel like there's no hope or no way of getting out, you're probably wondering, is recovery even possible? I know that when I was housebound, I was always Googling, like, how can I get better? How can I fix agoraphobia? And there were heaps of websites that said that I could get better, and they tended to be websites that were selling something. And then there were other websites where, you know, it was like a public forum of people saying that they'd been dealing with agoraphobia for X amount of years and, you know, they still hadn't escaped, or they would say that they'd managed to get better for a couple of years and then they'd relapsed and they'd been sick again for, you know, 5, 10, 20 years. And it just seemed like, for the most part, recovery wasn't possible unless I was going to buy some kind of program that promised that it was. But it started to make me feel like I wasn't ever going to get there. I wasn't ever going to get back to a life where leaving the house felt normal and not terrifying. And I remember distinctly sitting in the car one day and saying,
Can't see how I'm ever going to get better. Like, I just can't. I can't imagine not being like this. I remember not being like this, but I can't imagine ever going back there or ever not thinking these thoughts.
because the fear that you feel every day is so overwhelming and it takes every part of your being, every part of your energy. And it's like, how could I ever not feel this way when I feel this way so strongly all of the time? I think that's a common misconception, which is like probably another video altogether. But you know, the idea that people think agoraphobics only feel scared when they try to go out of the house. No, I felt scared all of the time, every day, from morning to night, even sometimes in the middle of the night. Not just because I was trying to leave the house, but even if I was just sitting on the couch watching a show, because it's like, you don't feel normal at any point. You don't feel like you used to feel, and it's really disconcerting. But like I said, that's another topic. The point of this video is recovery even possible? And I'm here to tell you that yes, it is possible. And I'm not saying that because I'm trying to sell you something. I'm telling you that because I am somebody who was housebound for over 2 years, unable to leave the house, unable to hold down a job, unable to attend therapy or go to the doctor's office or really do anything because I couldn't leave the house. I am now somebody who works. I work pretty much full time. I travel. I have 2 kids. If my partner came in and said to me, hey, we're going to go to Italy tomorrow, I would be like, yes, like, let's do that. Whereas, you know, obviously when I was housebound, it would be like, how am I possibly going to do that? Like, the dream is there, the idea is there, but there's no way I could actually get myself even to get into the car to then drive to the airport to then get on a plane. You know, it was just like there were so many steps that had to be met in order for me to do anything. To be someone who went from genuinely being too afraid to get in the car and drive down the end of my street to being somebody who was, you know, climbing a mountain in New Zealand, and like traveling around in a camper van. Like, it was just such a disparity between those 2 points. And so I want you to know that yes, you can get from this point to this point. It is possible. But I want to talk you through what kind of mindset shifts need to happen in order for you to be willing to go through the in-between to get from point A to point B. So there's 3 things that I'm going to talk about that I think are really important to embrace and acknowledge when we're talking about recovery being possible. And the first one is that courage includes fear. So you getting from the point of being agoraphobic to, for simplicity's sake, we'll call it unagoraphobic, you are going to need to accept the fact that fear is going to be involved in that journey. And I know that that seems really frustrating because what you're feeling right now every day is fear, and that's what's stopping you from being able to do the things that you want to do. So to acknowledge the fact that yes, fear is going to be involved as you keep moving forwards is like, what? Like, I want to be able to do the things without the fear. You really have to convince yourself and know you are going to find courage to face your fears, when you are willing to feel your fears, when you are willing to experience your fears. And so for me, what that meant was acknowledging that going out of my house is going to feel terrifying. I spent so long not wanting to go out because I was like, it shouldn't feel terrifying. It doesn't feel terrifying for everyone else. Like, why does it feel terrifying for me? And what medication can I take, or what therapy can I do, or what hypnosis can I do that's going to stop that terror from being there so that I can go out? That was like a fool's journey. The more time I spent doing that, the more time I spent stuck indoors. Once you acknowledge that you are going to feel terrified and you're going to have to feel terrified, that's when it starts to get easier from there. It doesn't feel easier to begin with because it feels terrifying and you're so hung up on that, the fact that terror is there. The more practice you get at it, the more into the habit you get of feeling the terror, it starts to dissipate and you realize it wasn't so much the terror or the fear that you were feeling, it was more the anticipation of the fear. It wasn't really fear that was holding you back, it was the fear of fear. Kind of a mind fuck. In order to find courage, you are going to have to feel the fear inside you, because that courage is already there. It's already inside you. I know it doesn't feel like it is, but it is. But you have to be willing to feel fear as well, because the fear is where your courage is. Okay? So that's point one. You're going to have to embrace the fact that you're going to need to feel scared in order to get from agoraphobic to unagoraphobic. Second point, and this is what I was talking about earlier, is exploring what recovery means. When I first started wanting to recover from agoraphobia, recovery for me meant going back to the way I was prior to experiencing agoraphobia. And that meant not having panic attacks, not feeling terrified, not feeling fear, not feeling weird when I'm out with friends having a coffee and then suddenly getting that sliding feeling in my stomach where I'm like, oh, I don't want to be here, and like sweating, but also trying to look like I'm not panicking at all. I didn't want to have to deal with any of that. That's what recovered looked like for me in my head. But what I found out as I went along my journey was that I can't ever go back there. That's the past. Like, I can't ever be that person again. You can't unknow what you know. And now that my body has learnt this kind of habitual behavior of panicking and scanning my body for discomfort and always trying to like shoot my brain into the future and figure out like what bad thing might happen if XYZ, because I have picked up those behaviors and I've walked those pathways in my head, those are always going to be pathways that are in my head. The less I play out those behaviors, the less like habitual they'll be, but they're always going to be there. It's like you can't unlearn how to ride a bike once you've learned. You know what I mean? Like, you're always going to know how to ride a bike. You might not ride a bike for 20 years and then be really bad at it when you try to ride after 20 years, but as you ride, it'll come back to you. I will always have that sort of penchant for panic in my head. I will always have that kind of like, you know, urge to think about the worst case scenario. When I was housebound though, that stuff was all over me all of the time. You know, like thinking about the worst case scenario, I was doing that constantly. Whereas these days, like, I do it sometimes and I catch myself doing it, but I don't do it all the time. And so recovery doesn't look the way that I thought it was going to look, because I can't go back to that person who had never experienced panic and anxiety, because that's not me anymore. That's not who I am now. And to be honest, I wouldn't want to lose the things that I've learnt along the way. Really exploring the idea that recovery might not look the way you think it's going to look, but it's going to include the lessons that you need to learn. Recovery is going to take you on a growth journey that is going to be wild, really wild in bad ways and in really amazing ways. But it's like everything with life. Like, it's not always going to feel good. It's not always going to be pretty. It's not always going to be comfortable. Recovery now looks like being someone who can become familiar with the thoughts that I'm thinking and become familiar with when I'm feeling panicked. And instead of running from that like I used to, now my tendency is to explore that. You know, if there's something that freaks me out, I usually kind of want to walk towards it Whereas I used to be like, like avoid, backtrack, run away. Yeah, now these days I'm like a lot more willing to put myself in the face of discomfort, and that's what recovery now means to me. The last thing that I want you to remember when it comes to the idea of recovering from agoraphobia, you can spend as much time as you want looking for a solution. The honest truth is, the more time you spend looking for a solution and not acknowledging that you already know what you need to do, the more time you're going to waste. If you are somebody who wants to be better now, you want to be able to travel or to work or to just be able to walk down the street freely and not freak out, then you already know what you need to do in order to get there. And I know that you spend a lot of time Googling and YouTubing and searching because you're like, but it feels so complicated. Like, there has to be a way I can fix this that doesn't involve putting myself in the forefront of my fears. I'm very sorry to tell you, it does involve putting yourself in the forefront of your fear. You can take the medications, you can do the therapies, you can listen to the audiobooks, and all of those things are helpful. That's not to say that those things don't help, but there is going to be nothing that convinces you of your own ability to cope more than your ability to cope. You know what I mean? Like, you have to start putting yourself in the face of discomfort, and that's going to be the only thing that really helps to get you back out there. It's going to be you getting yourself back out there. I kept changing medications and kept going to my doctor and saying, this isn't working and this isn't working and everything's making me feel weird, and like, I just don't want to feel weird anymore. And like, reading the books and, Googling and Googling and Googling all the time. Like, how can I fix myself? I knew ultimately that the way I was going to have to do it was going to be to go outside. But I was like, there has to be something that makes that easier. Honestly, there's nothing that makes it easier other than doing it. And the quicker you acknowledge that, the less time you will spend fluffing around at home getting worse before you get better. It's going to be difficult. It's going to include fear. It's going to look different than maybe you thought it was going to look. And the way to get towards recovery is to start doing the things that you've been avoiding doing. There's not like a way around it. You have to go straight through the things that you're trying to avoid. And the best way that I've found to help yourself through that is to build a community around you while you do it. I have a lot of tips on my channel in like past videos of like things that are going to help you get started, things that are going to help you on your journey. So please go check those videos out. But suffice to say that the real answer is you need to put yourself in direct line of the things that scare you in order to move through them. That's it. I hope I've assured you in this video that recovery is possible, that you can go from being housebound and terrified to being somebody who travels and lives and works and plays and exists in the world without always being terrified. You can and you will. I believe in you. Comment down below if you want some support. I believe in you. You need to believe in you as well.